Okay, so lesson 2 is going to talk about agriculture specifically and its impact on Earth. So let's talk about some negative impacts of ag food processing and natural resources. So we know what agriculture is. I'm not going to define that. Many farming practices, whether commercial farming or small-scale subsistence farming, they can damage the soil, land, and environment. Okay, small-scale subsistence farming is most common in the developing world. It's farming intended for food just for surviving. In many cases, people grow food, much of their own food in subsistence farming, but may not have resources to opt for more sustainable farming practices, so they're, not really benefiting the environment. So this is a picture of an example of desertification that can result from erosion and overgrazing, so not rotating your crops or your animals. So here's this one, and this says, process decreases soil fertility and create layers of sediment that flow down a river. Major crops contributing to it are wheat, cotton, cassava, coffee, corn, rice, tea, and tobacco. Unfortunately, these are some of the staple crops around the world. Land conversion and habitat loss, so clearing habitats for agriculture, mining, logging. This is detrimental. Wasting water. We've talked about our fresh water and our supply. Agriculture consumes about 70% of it. Residential use is only 8%. So with the high volume, there are some issues with that and some problems with irrigation and things of that nature. Pollution, we have a lot of livestock and they go to the bathroom, and we have a lot of pesticides and chemicals that we use as well. Agriculture practices are a leading cause of greenhouse gases, and genetic erosion is a loss of genetic diversity in a species. So diversity is important for an ecosystem. That's what sustainable is about. All these different things going together, how the earth is supposed to be. If we're not diversifying, we're only growing the same variety of corn and so much of these staple crops, then we're going to have this genetic erosion. So we talked about land conversion. Intensive monoculture is a process of using land to grow just a single crop. It's really different than growing a variety of plants or food. This can be damaging because it's not putting good nutrients back in the soil. It's always taking the same ones out. So it's not a really great practice. Wasteful water consumption, we talked about those. And this could be from leaky irrigation systems, wasteful irrigation systems, or poor crop choice, using a wet weather crop in a dry environment. We talked about soil erosion. Some amount of topsoil, the rich soil for planting, is lost in erosion and irrigation runoff every year. Land degradation occurs when the soil becomes useless and the land is no longer useful for agriculture. So then it's just barren. And wildlife, nothing's going to grow really well, so it's kind of wasted. 25 million acres a year become degraded. 30% of the land is already degraded. Pollution, residues from fertilizers, all these pesticides, they can get in the water runoff and can cause water system difficulties, including excess algae bloom. And then climate change. Agriculture is responsible for 14% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which are the ones associated with climate change, perhaps significantly more, with some estimations suggesting that livestock counts for 18%. Ag emissions are a result of livestock manure use, burning, wetland rice cultivation, deforestation, clearing the land for ag use has reduced the available forests that counteract those greenhouse gases, that provide the oxygen. Genetic erosion, that's a depletion of genetic diversity. Today, there's much less genetic variety in plant and livestock species. 30 crops account for 90% of calories consumed by people, and 14 animal species account for livestock production. Significantly smaller than in the past. The impact of industrial food processing. and accessing and using natural resources. Take a moment to think about drilling for and processing crude oil and then using that oil. Improving the efficiency and reducing waste throughout these industries can reduce the negative impact associated with them. So if we just kind of start implementing proper wastewater disposal and solid waste that includes both organic and inorganic waste, these are some things we can do to help preserve and put agriculture, give it a better name when it comes to the environment. Environmental issues associated with natural resource production are often more extreme, both in terms of accessing natural resources and using them. In Unit 9, you learned about these risks with oil drilling and fracking. Widespread logging and mining activities can also lead to significant environmental harm.